With game week 11 being an absolute disaster for most FPL managers, I thought I'd put together the ultimate wildcard for game week 12. And starting off our game week 12 wildcard team, we are sticking with the familiar and kind of the most popular goalkeeper at the moment in FPL. It is Areola. West Ham defensively, they're a bit of a mess. They are indeed, but the fixtures are quite strong for, I'd say, about the next 5-6 game weeks. We've got Nottingham Forest, we've got Burnley, we've got Crystal Palace, we've got Fulham, and we have Wolves coming up for West Ham. So some definite positive fixtures in there. There has been a change in goalkeeper's position on the bench. Obviously, the past few wildcard drafts that I have been doing for previous game weeks have included Turner, but he was dropped today, so it does look like he has lost his place as the #1 goalkeeper for Forest. So we've gone for the second cheapest goalkeeper option behind Areola, and it is Jordan Pickford at 4.4. Not like amazing fixtures for Everton and Pickford coming up, but definitely defensively they have looked a lot more solid over the past few game weeks. Seems like Dyche is starting to get his principles into the players. I think since Branthwaite has come into the back line as well, they have definitely looked a more solid defensive unit. So definitely a team, I think, especially in this goalkeeper area, there doesn't seem to be anyone kind of outstanding. I think if you weren't going for a Crystal Palace defender, maybe like if you can't get to Gahey or Anderson, then I think Johnson is probably the best choice in terms of goalkeeper at the moment. If you're looking for a goalkeeper that rotates extremely nicely with Areola, I probably would say Leno over the next 8 fixtures does kind of rotate extremely well when West Ham do have difficult fixtures. But at the moment for me, I just can't see the point in kind of having two playing goalkeepers that are going to play every single week. Like, it just seems like we might as well just bank on one team, hope they keep a clean sheet and don't get battered, because rotating around for me this season hasn't really worked out. Areola's been a huge disappointment as well, so there doesn't really seem to be any kind of reason to kind of just keep hopping around. Even the premium goalkeepers this season haven't been great. Martinez dropping an absolute clanger as well today, you know, after being voted as one of the best goalkeepers in the world. So I think there's definitely some debate to be had around who to go for in goal, but I've gone for the 2 cheapest options as I do feel it frees up a lot more attacking options in the rest of this side. So let's move into the back line. We're going to start off with William Saliba, arguably the most nailed Arsenal defender, but at the moment, God knows. I still think I would prefer going Gabriel if I knew he was going to play every single week. I think he's just got that little bit more attacking potential in him. And I think he is just, you know, sometimes the better of the 2 defenders from an FPL kind of standpoint. But some really good fixtures coming up for Arsenal. Burnley, Brentford, Wolves, Luton, some of the best teams that you could be playing right now in terms of, you know, defensive data and attacking data as well. Burnley and Luton, the 2 standout performers there. And with the other defenders that we've got in this team, he does rotate extremely nicely around that board. So let's move on to our next defender, and it is Kieran Trippier. Newcastle's next fixture is Bournemouth. Then it does get a little bit tricky with Chelsea and Manchester United, but the form that they're in at the moment, would you argue going against Trippier? Probably not. You'd still play him in those 2 games. Then it's Everton, great fixture. Then it's Tottenham again. Then it's Fulham and Luton, so some really good fixtures in kind of the longer term coming up for Newcastle. They're playing some of the bottom sides as well in Fulham, Bournemouth and Luton. And then the 2 grey fixtures, the Chelsea and the Manchester United, I think I'd still probably play Kieran Trippier. And you know what? I think he's still justifying his price tag at the moment. Obviously scored 0 points last week. This week scored 9 points with a clean sheet and 3 bonus points. His attacking data as well is still ridiculously good, so I definitely think he is justifying his price point at the moment. And I think with, you know, some of the arguably difficult fixtures coming up for Newcastle, I don't think they're actually that difficult, so I'd still be very happy to play him in those game weeks. Moving on to our final defender, we spoke briefly about Crystal Palace. It is Mark Gahey. I do think he is just the better option out of going for Johnson. Everton, Luton, West Ham and Bournemouth coming up for Crystal Palace. A really good set of 4 fixtures. Definitely a defensive team I would be very happy to have an asset in. We saw what Tyreek Mitchell did yesterday. I wouldn't be expecting that every single week. Mark Gahey and Anderson have been very solid, very reliable for me in my own personal team. And Crystal Palace as well have one of the best XG concededs in the league. So definitely a defence I would be highly recommending investing in if if I was on my Game Week 12 wildcard. Right, let's move on into the midfield. We're going to start off with Matoma. Sheffield United up next for Brighton. They haven't been the same Brighton we expected and kind of the same Brighton we saw last year as well. But Sheffield United at home is a great fixture. It's one we always need to be targeting. I know Wolves didn't kind of pull it off yesterday, and maybe that's going to give Sheffield United a little bit of bounce in form, a little bit of confidence, but I still think we want to be targeting this fixture. Now, Matoma and Brighton have been disappointing, like I said. I think he's only picked up 13 points over the last 5 game weeks, picked up a very fluky assist against Everton. There is money in this squad to potentially upgrade Matoma to Saka if you wanted to go down that route, but for a short-term pick for the Sheffield United and Nottingham Forest fixture, I definitely think it could be worth going for Matoma. A little bit of a gamble, potentially go for him for the 2 weeks, and then look to replace him after that with Wolves and Luton coming up for Saka. You could easily do that as a potential transfer. But I've got Matoma. The points aren't quite there. Did pick up an assist yesterday, but again, the performances, I think if Estupinan's back after the international break, that Nottingham Forest fixture could be like a real goldmine for Matoma. He is missing that left back. It definitely influences the way that he plays the game, makes the overlapping runs. Both of them work extremely well with each other. I think there was a graph I saw on Twitter as well, kind of comparing the most kind of player contributions towards goals, and it is those two kind of linking up the most for that Brighton team. So arguably when he's back in the side, it should make things a little bit better for Matoma. Moving on to our next midfielder, it is Son, yet to play in game week 11 as he's playing on Monday night against Chelsea, but I am very happy to have him. I think he's a great asset. I know he's had the price rise, he's up to 9.5 million, but I still think he's a great asset. He's playing up front in one of the best attacking teams so far this season in terms of goals and in terms of data as well. So I'm very happy to have Son. The fixtures do get a little bit tricky, but I think when teams do play maybe potentially a higher line, I think that is going to benefit Son. We've already seen it so far this season, and I do think there is lots more goals for him to have in his ability, in his games, all that good stuff. All that good stuff. Right, let's move on to our next midfielder. It is Mohamed Salah. Again, I am recording this in between the Aston Villa game and the Liverpool-Luton game. So if Salah goes off injured or does something crazy or whatever, ignore me, whatever I'm about to say, or take on board what I'm about to say. I think he would be the main reason that you wildcard in if you haven't got him already. Maybe he's just put in an absolute masterclass against Luton, picked up some positive results, and with the potential injury to Erling Haaland, obviously coming off yesterday with an ankle injury during the game against Bournemouth, he will be one of the most captain players for some future game weeks. You're looking at the Fulham, you're looking at the Sheffield United, and you're looking at the Crystal Palace. I think after game week 17, there's definitely an argument to potentially go without Salah, with him going off to AFCON and Liverpool's fixtures potentially taking a turn. But if I was to wildcard right now, I still would be having Mohamed Salah in my team. Moving on to our next midfielder, and it is Jarrod Bowen. We spoke about the good fixtures with Areola, Nottingham Forest, Burnley, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, Fulham, Wolves, some really positive fixtures, and Jarrod Bowen and arguably Mohamed Kudus have been the two standout performers over the weekend, and Jarrod Bowen more longer term has been the standout performer for West Ham so far this season. 7 games away from home, 7 goals for him. He's picking up some positive returns, one of the highest scoring midfielders in the game at the moment, and so like I said, some really good fixtures coming up. He seems to be the key danger man. If you can't quite afford him, I do think Kudus does look a good option if that's not available in your price range, but Jarrod Bowen for me is a player I really like and would have in my team selection. Moving on to our final midfielder, it is a guy back from injury, a guy I started the season with. It is Eze. I do have a little bit of a soft spot for him. We'll get there eventually. Some really good fixtures for the next 4 coming up for Crystal Palace: Everton, Luton, West Ham and Bournemouth. Arguably he's playing 2 of the bottom 4 teams, Luton and Bournemouth, which is always something you want to be looking to target, and picked up an assist upon his return as well. Not only is he back from injury, it also looks like Michael Elise might be available for the Everton game. If not, he should be back after the international duty for that Luton game, and that would be absolutely amazing for Crystal Palace, because those two are the creative outlets. It's something that Palace have definitely lacked going forward over the past few weeks. If you look at their XG XG created, they are right down the bottom because they really struggle to create good opportunities without Eze and without Elise. But with those two back in the mix, you definitely feel Palace could be a good side to invest in. Hopefully Elise is back for that Everton game. I do think that makes Eze a much better option as well, having 2 creative outlets who can put the ball in the goal, yeah, and and create chances for the team around them. So I've gone with Eze. Again, you could upgrade either Matoma or Eze in this team for Saka if you wanted to go down that route, because Burnley at home is a really nice fixture. Right, let's move on to our two forwards. We're going to start off with Nketiah. It was a blank for him against Newcastle. Gabriel Jesus is probably going to be back after the international breaks. You're probably only going to get a 1 week punt out of Nketiah, but that's fine. That's why we've put him in here so far. We've also got Darwin Núñez on the bench as well, who potentially can replace him, and you can drop Nketiah down to a 4.5, or maybe have a look at who else is kind of delivering at that price point. Maybe Odsonne Edouard offers himself up for that Luton game in game week 13. But we've gone with Nketiah. I think Burnley are definitely a team we want to be targeting. They are really struggling to adapt to the Premier League. Vincent Kompany not winning home games, not winning away games, not keeping a clean sheet either, and you do imagine it could be a little bit of a feasting for Arsenal. We saw what Nketiah can do to newly promoted sides against Sheffield United with his hat-trick the other game week, so definitely something I would be looking to potentially have as a 1 to 2 week punt, depending on Gabriel Jesus' injury updates. Right, let's move on to our final forward, and it is Ollie Watkins. He was disappointing in the Nottingham Forest game, as were Villa, to be honest. They didn't look very good going forward. He is the only Villa asset that I am recommending for this game week. Fulham at home is a great fixture. Then it's Tottenham, then it's Bournemouth, then it's City and Arsenal. So again, longer term, probably not an asset we want to hold for too long, but we probably would just move to Julian Alvarez after probably that game week 14 game, and then game week 15, probably looking at Villa, maybe someone like Julian Alvarez, with Villa, Luton and Crystal Palace coming up for them. So that is potentially the switch that I would make there. But in terms of forwards, there isn't anyone who's like massively just smashing it and impressing me and like kind of doing extremely well. Watkins is probably the only one, if you look over the past few weeks, who's actually managed to do something, as with the man on the bench who we will come on to talk about, Darwin Núñez. So the fixtures are still there in the short term for Watkins, and like I said, we are still waiting for another forward to kind of appear and make themselves known to us in the game. Right, let's have a quick run through of the bench. Like I said, we spoke about Pickford. Charlie Taylor, nice cheap defender. I think if you weren't going for Pickford, I'd probably have Branthwaite as well. He's been extremely impressive in that Everton backline as well. Only 4 million for him, so definitely makes sense to potentially invest in him. Darwizzy, obviously the Liverpool fixtures. Brentford at home, a little bit difficult. Then City away, extremely difficult. But Fulham, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace, a really nice run there. And it looks like he's starting to gain his form, starting again today. Again, all this is based on whether or not he absolutely smashes it against Luton. He could deliver, it could be a great week and everybody wants him in their team, or he could just have an absolute stinkfest. He seems to be one of those players where he's hot or cold. There's no in between with Darwin Núñez, but definitely a player I would be considering if I was on my wildcard. And then finishing up, we've gone for Murillo. Now you might be like, who the hell is Murillo? Right, he plays for Nottingham Forest. And again, you might be thinking, why? They've got West Ham, they've got Brighton. Again, not easy fixtures, but the rest of the defence should cover those game weeks. Then it's Everton, then it's Fulham, then it's Wolves, then Tottenham, then Bournemouth. So he's definitely, again, another player I'm potentially thinking about investing in my own team around game week 14, taking Craig Dawson out, putting in Murillo. Again, these cheap defenders, if they can keep clean sheets with positive fixtures, it's always what we want to see. Good rotating defenders as well within the rest of our side. That was the game week 12 wildcard. Let me know what you think of it down in the description below, and if you've got any questions about your team, get them in there as well. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy the rest of your day.